Please welcome to the stage again, Tyler Bishop. Wait, what am I missing?
I've been welcomed. All right, so I have an opportunity that I would like to share with everybody here today. So I think most of you in this room will appreciate this. It's a web opportunity, and I'd like to invite you all to invest. The first year, we're only going to do $617,000 in revenue, but after that, we're going to do $42.5 million. And in 6 years, we'll do $600 million, and you can see the traffic is aligned perfectly with our revenue. Who's in? I named my presentation, Wait, What Am I Missing? So I'm not surprised that many of you are skeptical. So you're probably wondering, what's the missing information? Well, turns out I actually don't have an opportunity. I've already got all the funding I need. I've already got $90 million, spent over $22 million in marketing, but from an award-winning marketer, let me just tell you, I think that's pretty fair. And our primary source of revenue is actually selling products. So I know pretty much everyone in here is a publisher, so you're like, an e-commerce play, maybe not as interesting. Well, let's see if it gets more interesting. Those products we're selling for 1/3 of their break-even price, so the more that we sell, actually, the more money that we lose. And actually, that second year that we do $42.5 million in revenue, we're gonna lose about $85.5 million. And so that is the classic Pets.com story. So it's kind of a classically bad investment. They did a Macy's Day Parade float. They did this Super Bowl commercial. They pretty much spent money in all the worst ways they possibly could for a company that was losing money on everything that they sold. They actually got sued for this puppet somehow, and so they lost money just by having a puppet that got sued. And then we've got some people here from the Journal. I'm not sure what that graph there is, but that's the stock price, and I don't think that's a good thing. So the question becomes, we have the data that we want, right? We've got the revenue growth, we've got the traffic, but are we looking at things holistically? What are we missing? And this is really what I'm going to talk about here today. And I think one of the things that we're going to notice is that there's a nuance to this sort of material, which is context gets harder to spot when you start to look at things granularly. So a good example of this, I've got page A and page B, both of them rank for a different search query. So what's the difference? Well, we look at a couple things. Objectively, page A has more links. Keyword density is higher, but not too high. The Moz domain authority score is higher. Word count higher. Those are just a couple of factors. I'd ask everybody, which one do you think ranks higher? But you guys kind of see where I'm going with this type of thing. It's B. It's not the one that you would think. There's a billion different reasons why this could be. There's a lot of different factors, not just those things, but it begs the question, why, right? So if we throw out all the things that we think we know about SEO or what's a ranking factor, and we think about what Google says, it's just provide great content. Just make your content great and make your website crawlable. So the query in question is to train a Shiba Inu. I have 2 of them. I would describe them as not classically trained. And so when I Googled this, I found both of these results, and I largely thought that they were both good, genuinely. I thought both results provided about the same amount of information about training a Shiba Inu. So what's the difference? Well, we can actually look at this more objectively than maybe we thought. So looking with Cloud Natural Language, which is inside of Google Cloud, one of their AI machine learning products, you can actually throw both pieces of content in there, and it'll read through it. It'll look at related entities and information and kind of categorize what they think the content is about. And so when we run both pieces of content, which genuinely I felt were pretty similar, we come away with this, which is A, for train a Shiba Inu, the top entities were puppy and run, and for B, it was dog and Shiba Inu. So you can draw some lines there and say, okay, well, maybe B is a little bit more appropriate. And then when we ask it to categorize them, B, pets and animals, pets, dogs, A, hobbies and leisure. So you start to see objectively how when machines read through the content, pulling out those different entities and how they connect with one another. And it starts to differentiate a little bit more. So we can look at all the different things that that go into SEO and organizing content so that you can rank highly in search engines. But ultimately, the people that are searching for stuff, I just want to know how to train Shiba Inus. This is Toast. Toast is 10 years old, and I still need to train her. I don't know that she's ever going to be trained, but that's what I'm trying to find out. And having an objective way to understand if my content is solving that problem better than somebody else's is really helpful. But as we get more variables, this means we need more data to contextualize things. You can do this yourself if you want to compare your content versus somebody else's content that's ranking above you. This is a really good strategy. I've been playing with this a little bit, and I like it. It's cloud.google.com/natural language. So are you finding ways to add context to all of your data or not? But what about intuitive truth? So bad news for the happy hour later today. How many of you guys know alcohol kills brain cells? Yeah, it's unfortunate, but actually, it's not true. Alcohol doesn't kill brain cells. According to our friends at the New York Times, Scientific American. Yeah, it's great. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm really happy. Apparently, it's not great for dendrites, whatever those are. I'm not a neuroscientist, but it's not great for dendrites. But if you drank enough alcohol to kill a brain cell, they said it would be enough alcohol to actually kill you as well. And in fact, it says it may improve cognitive abilities, which we've all been there, right? But these intuitive truths, they permeate everything that we do. And this is something that I hear a lot. Maybe some of you have heard this as well. Large sites dominate search results, and small to medium sites growingly can't compete. And you can confirm this pretty easily. You do a simple Google search of a high-volume key term, and you'll see that looking just at Moz domain authority scores, all the top results are big sites, right? High domain authority. Except that's probably not true. We looked at 30 of the Alexa top 1K publishers. It's actually something we've looked at deeper before, but for the sake of this, we looked a little bit deeper into it. And on average, they saw 14% fewer visitors in 2018 compared to 2017. Only 20%, less than 20% increased organic traffic in that time period. And on average, there was a pretty significant drop in the keywords that they ranked for. On the opposite side, we looked at 30 small to medium-sized publishers that competed directly with those sites. And on average, they produced far less content. They saw increases in their organic traffic in 2018 versus 2017. And on average, they added over 1,000 new keywords. So in fact, it's these small sites that seem to be disrupting the larger ones. There's a couple key differences between these two that we noticed. Content length was longer on the small to medium-sized sites. The titles included more things like how to, how do, who is. The content was shared less on social media. The larger sites, the article titles were longer. There was 200 million more backlinks on average, if you can believe it. That's a lot. But there was also a 4 times higher instance that these were going to be ranking for top 3 or in the top 3 of high volume keywords. So it's really easy to get that confirmation bias because you search things that seem common, right? And there's some reasons why this actually may be a challenge for larger brands in general, which is you're trying to write content across a lot of different platforms for a broad audience. And so those longer headlines are going to get more social shares. There's a lot of social shares that are attributed to things like list posts and things like that, not as much to how-to. Those how-to, why, what posts get more backlinks, and the content that performs well on social doesn't necessarily perform as well in organic in terms of titles. And this is from a study that Backlinko did recently. So this is why my good friend Saul here from Simply Psychology, which Saul's story is great because he starts it off by saying, I started a website because my cable TV provider gave us one for free, which I love that. He just the cable company was like, here, you can have a website. And he's like, sure. And he started adding all his psychology papers and things like that to it, and eventually got a domain name. And now he outranks Wikipedia and Psychology Today for a number of really high volume keywords. But if you have an intuitive truth that large sites are dominating search results and the small ones can't compete, you might do something like this. This is a publisher that in 2017 saw that their organic traffic was declining, was sure that this was because large sites had been dominating all the search results. And so they were going to capitalize on that viral Facebook reach, that sweet, sweet Facebook reach. We all know that hasn't been the best since 2017. And so you can see here how it's worked out as they converted all their top organic landing pages to slideshows. So are we relying on info that we actually aren't verifying? Unfortunately, if you try to verify all the information for yourself, you can become a bit of a conspiracy theorist. And not to take away from anyone that subscribes to the flat Earth theory, I guess, theory, right? It's a super popular Netflix documentary now. There's all kinds of videos that you can find on this material. They have all kinds of claims, like you look on the horizon, it looks flat. Like, John, looks flat to me. I don't know. And then, if you're flying in a plane, I don't know how many of you flew here, but I didn't notice the nose of the plane continually tilting down. If we were on something round, you'd think you'd have to keep tilting it down. Lots of questions. But if you don't verify information for yourself, how would you know any better? Where do we get data that we can believe in and where we can trust? This poor gentleman is actually from my hometown of St. Louis. I had a great chat with him right before we walked on stage. We were both speaking at a blogger conference, and he got up on stage and started talking about trends, and the very first thing he put up was the decline of display advertising. Well, it's not true. Display advertising spending has been going up for almost the last decade. The percentage change isn't increasing the same degree, but we've been tracking publisher revenues, session revenue per visitor for the last 3 years, and an index includes thousands of sites, and we continually see it growing in linear fashion. There's all kinds of caveats to this information, but on Black Friday, we generally see a record broken every year. You can actually do that at adrevenueindex.com or adrevenueindex.ezoic.com and just follow along. I know a lot of you probably already do that. Are we questioning trends and getting data from trusted sources? So where do we get the data that we can trust? But how do we know it's important? This is one of my favorite stories. Our founder of Ezoic, Dwayne LaFleur, a long time ago, started the first ad network for Facebook. So Farmville and all those types of games where you turn your real money into digital currency to buy tractors online. He was at the cornerstone of that, and that company was bought by another business, and they were working with Mafia Wars, which was the big popular Facebook game at the time. And at that time, everyone was focused on squeezing as much money out of an ad as they could. So they were focused on targeting and demand sources. And so Dwayne came to the call with a number of recommendations and thoughts. But he'd got on and actually tried to play the game. And he's like, I couldn't figure out how to play it. I don't know how this thing is so popular. And so he had a couple suggestions for them because he'd seen it in his previous life being very successful whenever publishers would find ways, in this case, developers, would find ways to make the games easier to use. So he gave them a couple of layout suggestions, and they were a pretty lean team. So they went back and immediately made the changes. Meanwhile, at their offices, everybody around Dwayne said, look at their intraday revenue, what just happened? And the revenue had 3x'd almost instantly. And so they called the group up and they said, well, what did you guys do? They said, well, we just went ahead and made those layout changes that Dwayne asked us about. We figured we'd test it. And right there was the thing that everybody was trying to do in that space at the time, which was essentially find a way to exponentially increase the revenue. And everybody was doing it incrementally by trying to squeeze all the money out of targeting. But the truth is it was actually the user's experience that was driving the majority of the uplift here. So how do we know that we're solving the right problems? More demand partners is better than less, right? So we still think about things this way. And it's not wrong. I mean, more demand partners is better. It is better. But they win on a marginal basis. So we look at a good example here, publisher running just Google Ad Exchange. Then we look at it with header bidding, where we add in 2 additional partners, Index Exchange and Criteo. And what we get is $100 versus $97, so 3%. So it's incremental, but 3% is 3%. Over time, 3%, though, through a lot of partners, you have a lot of different things. You have bid request latency, you've got separate management payment set up, all those different types of things. But if you can manage it and you can turn a profit doing these things, it makes sense. But the value of this gets distorted by things like win ratio. So I hear this a lot, which is partner X wins 5% of the time, but 5% is 5%, right? But 5% doesn't mean 5% more revenue. It just means that they win 5% of the time incrementally. So AdX submits a bid of $1.04, Index Exchange $1.08, Index Exchange wins. So maybe they're winning that 5% of the time, but even if they do great and they win by 10% on 5%, that's 0.5% improvement. So that's all those things that we talked about, the management, the setup, for a very small percentage. So it's a small percentage of revenue enhanced by a very small amount. And this is going to become even less important. This is not something that I'll stand up here and try to explain or go through in detail. But Google announced last week that they're moving to a first price auction. They were on a second price auction. They were pretty much the only one in the space still doing that. The big difference is first price auction, the highest bidder pays that price. Second price auction, the highest bidder pays the second price, or the second highest bidder, plus 1 penny. And so this is essentially going to make it to where AdX is probably going to win a lot more bids, and things like header bidding and adding a lot of additional demand partners become less important inside of the space. So it begs the question once again, are we focused on the right thing? So I'm a retired magician, but I still like to keep up on the latest tricks. To do that, there's a magic site that uses Ezoic that I really like, and they share a lot of really great tricks on social media. And so I found an example of one day when they had 2 different posts go viral. I was really interested in taking a look at it. And so this is the chart for the day. And so right here you can see the page goes viral and visitor behavior shifts. So not only do the visitors change because now there are all these social visitors that are interested in one particular thing, but they are also going all to one page as opposed to multiple pages on the site. The Zoic machines learn in real time and start making adjustments to the things that they make adjustments to. And the machine finds that balancing ad impressions, placements, and density can make a difference for these visitors. The virality of the post dies down and behavior returns to normal. And then when it goes viral the second time, the machines adjust quickly because they understand who these visitors are and are able to adjust things much faster. And so over the course of the day, we saw a 215% increase in sessions per 1K visitors. So revenue per visitor. So it makes me ask the question, what did they do? What did the machines do to make this increase? Well, first question is, did they just jam a bunch of ads in the page, right? It'd be effective, but just probably wouldn't be as sexy to present at a conference. Yeah, the machines just jam more ads on the page. But when we look at this, it's pretty equal. So page views, sum of ads per visit, they're fairly even throughout that course of action. So what did they change? Well, primarily in this case, it was ad size and ad position. So the machines, you can see here, the red, the green, the yellow, a little bit of the blue, those things are changing based on the virality of the post. And so those are what seem to make the difference for the different visitors. Trying to find ways to make sure that they extended the session, spent more time on site, that certain ads were viewable to certain visitors based on how they behaved. But it begs that question once again, which is, are we looking at things holistically? Are we looking at everything? When we're talking about monetizing our site with ads, are we thinking about the user experience? When we're talking about SEO, we're talking about content, are we thinking about it in terms of objective information? How do we look at all these things together, and where is the marketplace headed? So it's hard because it's like my good friend Piper is going to talk about later today, the ecosystem is getting more and more complex. But it's not all bad, because you can get data now and information that you could never get before. But you have to seek it out and you have to contextualize it. And then you can question these industry truths, these things like the large domains are overtaking the smaller ones, display revenues going down. These types of things I hear them all the time. I hear them from people that are smart and people that aren't necessarily verifying this information on a daily basis. And so you can do this. But you have to understand the premises and use objective data. So you have to go get data that you can trust. And then you can scale decision making using technology. In the same way that you can use machine learning to read your content to tell you if it's better or worse, potentially, than another piece of content, you can use technology to do a lot of these things. So the other question is this guy ever going to stop talking? I promise I am. I'm going to talk a lot today. I'll be interrupting all of our speakers in between, but it's my pleasure to be here hosting this thing once again. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of data information with you. Hopefully, there is a lot more to come that you find valuable.